Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I am not John Campea, but welcome to his channel. I am not your host, John Campea. I am Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am here to answer some questions, Captain Marvel spoiler questions, actually, that I wasn't here to answer last week. So I'm here to answer your questions now. I hope you are going to enjoy this. This is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion of Captain Marvel. I'm going to give you my honest opinion. I will not lie, and I'm going to be open and completely honest. So if you have not seen Captain Marvel, please stay away from this discussion. I quite enjoyed the film. I've seen it twice. Actually, no, I've seen it 3 times, to be honest. And I've liked it more every time. And I think we're just going to get right down into the nitty gritty and discuss this movie, the 21st in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So here we go, right off the bat. Thiago Oliveira asks, or he says, I know Kevin Feige said Secret Invasion is still possible, but can we all forget it? I don't think they'll do it for a second. Well, Thiago, I don't either. As much as I might have liked I did like the Secret Invasion storyline in the comics. It was fun, but it really did sort of disturb me that a lot of the characters that I followed, like, seeing Elektra, when she turned out to be a Skrull, I was disturbed by that. I don't want to think that any of the Marvel characters that I've been following for the last 21 movies, 22 when we get to Endgame, are Skrulls. That doesn't mean we can't do it in the future, though. But I don't think they're going to do it. I really don't. Zach Houston says, loved how Fury lost his eye, intentional expectation, subversion, and spoke to his mysterious nature. I agree. It did seem like it didn't hurt very much. I mean, if a Flurkin popped your eyeball, I would think that you'd be screaming in agony. Maybe the Flurkin has some kind of anesthetizing something or other on its claws. But they should have made more of it. It didn't really bother me. Well, I know it bothered some people, and I'm sure we'll get into that more as these questions commence. Jeremiah says, I don't know how Captain Marvel is going to be used with her being so overpowered. It'll be a knock on future villains or a knock on other heroes in an Avengers movie. I don't know. I mean, I think that they'll tell us what her limitations are. I mean, Captain Marvel, basically, she takes energy around her and reflects it back. So if she's in I guess maybe an energy absent environment, that she won't be able to be as powerful as we think. I mean, it depends. I don't know. They really need to define her powers so we know exactly how much she wields. Benny95 says, in a leak of Endgame from a fired employee, he states that Captain Marvel becomes depowered from the Space Stone when confronting Thanos. Thoughts? That could happen. I mean, who knows? I don't know, but that could happen. It seems plausible. I mean, you have to do something to take her powers down a peg. It sounds canon, and it sounds like something that might happen. Dirk Diggler asks, Fury's reaction after being scratched in the eye and enjoying a meal didn't work for me. Unrealistic. Well, as I just said, yeah, I mean, I would have thought if someone popped my eyeball, I would have screamed in agony. But maybe the Flurkin has powers we don't know about. In the comics, there's whole universes inside of a Flurkin, so who knows? Ruski9110 says, they tease the conflict between Captain Marvel and Ronan and the Kree. Do you think the sequel will be between Captain Marvel and Iron Man or after Endgame? I actually think that if they do a Captain Marvel trilogy, if we see 3 Captain Marvel movies, I would love to see her progression, maybe get involved in a Kree-Skrull war after she is on the side of the Skrulls. Maybe she's able to fight against the Kree. The Kree are pretty much space Nazis, and they were trying to eradicate the Skrulls from existence. I mean, they were basically on they were running a genocidal campaign against the Skrulls. So yeah, I would love to see where that goes. Where does that conflict go? I don't know, but I'd like to see it. The Elusive says, I surprisingly like Captain Marvel. It's a good phase 1 film, unfortunately in a phase 3 world. If it came out in 2009, I feel people would see it more favorably. I didn't really see it that way. I saw Captain Marvel. We've talked about how the Marvel Cinematic Universe has like a Winter Soldier was a conspiracy thriller from the 70s. Ant-Man was like a heist film. I saw Captain Marvel as more of an indie origin film. It was much more of an indie story. The directors come from the indie film world. Of course, they made Half Nelson. And I really liked the fact that it was pretty much like an indie origin story. It was all about relationships. It was all about the relationships Carol Danvers had with everybody in her life. And I really liked that. I liked how we saw the shifting relationships and what they meant to her. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was different than any other origin movie we saw in the MCU, really. Alex Hayna says, my initial reaction to the credits scene, which I'm thinking is a scene from Endgame, is that I wish they didn't show it. Kind of wanted her arrival in Endgame to be a surprise as I watched the movie. You know what? I'm kind of with you there. I would like to have saved that for Endgame, but I mean, I understand what they were going for, although I wish that it wasn't exactly so on the nose. I mean, her arrival should have been a big deal in Endgame, but now we know it's coming. I guess we already did. So they can spend actually more time. I mean, that moment was, I'm sure it'll be expanded in Endgame, but if it's 3 hours for real, they need time. I'm sure there are things they had to cut out, and they needed, by putting it into Endgame, by putting it into Captain Marvel, they saved time from Endgame, maybe that could be used for something else. Ruski9110 says, also, did anyone else think Chris Evans looked a little lean, like they called everyone in during the off season to film it? You know, I kind of felt that way, because I love me some beefy Chris Evans. He's a hunk and burn and love that guy. And I loved when in Age of Ultron, when he tears a piece of wood in half. I mean, that guy's got some chest, and he did look a little slim. But you know what? Maybe that's part of the film. I don't know. Maybe he's let himself go after what happened on the world after the snap. I don't know. Alan Swanson says, did you see Kevin Smith's response to seeing the Mallrats script? Yes, Alan Swanson, I did. It was amazing. He was really completely touched by it. I can't imagine what it's like to make a movie with Stan Lee back in '95, because you've worshipped Stan Lee and you love Marvel Comics growing up, and then to see in Avengers, in Captain Marvel, seeing Stan Lee reading the Mallrats script from '95 with your name on it. Now Kevin Smith is canon in the MCU. I think that's pretty great. Cody John Walker says, now after the mid-credit scene, do you think the final trailer for Endgame will feature Captain Marvel maybe on April 2nd with ticket sales? Also, wouldn't spoil it as bad. You know, I don't know. I don't want to see another trailer. I don't need to see anything. I don't know anything that's happening in the movie. I don't want to know. I don't want to know any more than I do. And but I'm sure we probably will get what John and I have been calling the bang trailer, because they need to do that. I get it. I understand. They need to get mom and pop into the theater. So a bang trailer was what they'll use. But I just don't want to know anymore. I don't want to know anymore. CT says, Fury's story to Coulson about how he lost his eye due to the Kree may be an indication that Fury himself realized how anticlimactic the incident was. I like that idea. You know, he's like, yeah, it was the Kree. The Kree did it. I like that, because what's he going to say? I was hanging out with his cat that went all flirking on me and had all these tentacles and scratched my face, and I lost my eye to a cat. Probably not a good look for Nick Fury, head of S.H.I.E.L.D. You never know, though. Zuza Yu says Captain Marvel in 2 days made 450 million worldwide. Well, of course, I'm 2 weeks after the movie opened doing this this chat. So now we're up 760 million. We're roaring to $1 billion. Unbelievable. The movie's an incredible success, really amazing, and I'm stunned. But I did call it, John. John Campea knows I called it. I said $1 billion, and it is going to be $1 billion. Alex Hayna says, Ronan's inclusion reminded me of Vader in Rogue One, teased once or twice throughout the movie, then shows up during the final battle. You know what, Alex, I like that. I mean, I thought it was really cool that we saw Ronan working for the Kree. I mean, God, what an asshole, huh? I mean, the guy, he takes his Kree bombers and then bombs population centers from orbit. What a coward that guy is. But it made sense. I hated him even more after this, and I loved seeing him in it. So good on them for putting Ronan the Accuser in this movie. I liked it. Haskell 420 says, I thought how Fury's eye was taken out, but that's on me for the ideas in my head. Fury told Coulson a Kree did it. Tony to Cap in Avengers, he's the spy. His secrets have secrets. LOL. Yeah, and the secret is a cat took his eye. Even though it's an alien flirkin, it's still a cat. I wouldn't tell anyone that either. Zbenali says, I'm so glad Stan Lee was reading the Mallrats script, and I hope Kevin Smith takes the mantle for cameos now that we know he exists in the MCU. That would actually be kind of interesting. I don't know if they'll do that, But now that Kevin Smith is actually a canonical character in the MCU, it would be interesting. Maybe there'll be a cameo. He'll be shooting a movie or something during some attack somewhere, and we'll see him. I could see that happening. Alex Haynes says, do you think Goose will show up at Endgame? Well, in the comics, Goose is named Chewie in the comic books. Obviously, they didn't want the association with Star Wars was obvious, but they changed Goose's name to Goose from Chewie. But in the comics, Chewie and Rocket Raccoon have a very interesting relationship, and I would love to see Goose in Endgame and see if they bring that relationship from the comics forward, so we could see Goose and Rocket having a relationship. I think that'd be great. Bruce Frausto says, what are my chances with dating Brie Larson? Well, Bruce, I don't want to burst your bubble, buddy, but if you're asking that question on an internet chat show, probably not so good. Just as a point of, John knows more about relationship advice than I do, but if you want your chances of dating Brie Larson, you got to play it cool, buddy. Play it cool. Don't announce your intentions on the internet. Just do it. Don't tell anyone. Just do it. And by the way, as Will Wheaton says, don't be a dick. When you try something, make sure you're cool. Jim Calora says, Feige told E.T. he'd love to explore the 23 years between Captain Marvel and Endgame, perhaps a miniseries for Disney Plus, see your ongoing fight with the Kree and the Supreme Intelligence. Again, I love that idea. I think it'd be great to see Brie Larson doing. I would love to see the interim, like the 25 years it takes to catch up with Endgame. I think it'd be great. What does happen with the Kree and the Skrulls? What happens with her? She's got a quarter century of time to cover. Why not? Love to see it. GW427 says, can we talk about Ben Mendelsohn? Wow, so good. Love the record scene between him and Nick. That line he delivers, was it something I said? Love it. I too loved it. I thought Mendelsohn knocked it out of the park. I mean, remember, Ben Mendelsohn was in The Dark Knight Rises. He, of course, was Krennic in Rogue One. I love Mendelsohn. I mean, he's great as a villain. He was in that gambling movie with Ryan Reynolds, too. Mississippi something. Love the guy. Think he's great. NPE94 says, I mostly like Captain Marvel, but I think its most convincing villain was the script editor. Seriously, that script needed a few more passes, in my humble opinion. Well, I don't know if I agree. I mean, I think it was exactly the movie they set out to make, but I enjoyed it. But, that doesn't mean your opinion's wrong. If it didn't work for you, maybe they could have used a few more script passes. Stretch Kid 79 says, first credit scene is an edited version of what will be in Endgame. They did the same with Ant-Man, showing a shortened version of what was in Civil War. Yeah, I agree. It probably was. Again, I would have saved that scene. I know why they did it, because it's a big moment. So it makes sense. I get it. But I would like to have waited, I think. Ganesh Prabhu says, I love Brie Larson, her personality, but C-53 doesn't have a defense system advanced enough. Goddamn show, don't tell. Well, Ganesh, that is one of the primary rules in screenwriting. You show, you don't tell. But how do you show a defense system that isn't there? I don't know. It's a mystery. Zeroing Out says, Ronan didn't need to be in the movie, but I still like that he was. Also, love the Avenger Initiative name coming from her call sign. I do too. I mean, if I like the idea that Fury didn't just make up the Avengers Initiative, that it actually came from a real world thing. I mean, Carol Danvers had to have a big effect on Nick Fury. So seeing and finding out her poignant story, her backstory, and seeing that she was a fellow military person. I mean, we learned that Nick Fury was a spy and he was everywhere. And I think he was honoring his comrade at arms. I mean, she was Air Force, and to see that, it was a way of honoring not just her, but also the fact that they were brothers and sisters in arms. And I thought it was poignant, and I really liked it. So I'm with you. Alex Oro says, her new costume made me think it's like changing the colors of a Nazi uniform. Even Talos's wife was scared of it. Yeah, look, I agree. I know she tried to take it back and make it her own, but it's very Nazi-esque. The Kree imagery is purposefully Nazi. And but I still think she took something that corrupted her, or could have been a symbol of corruption, and made it her own. So she's railing against the symbol by making it in her own image, which I think is kind of always interesting when heroes do that. Zach Houston says, purpose for Ronan, setting up how he knew the power of an Infinity Stone for the events of Guardians of the Galaxy. Not necessary, but neither was furthering Coulson's and Fury's relationship. Yeah, maybe not, but it was cool. I mean, it does answer some questions and fill in some time. I didn't have an objection to that. I actually thought that was kind of cool. Joser Mate says, are the Skrulls going to be a big part of the MCU? I don't think a big part of the MCU. But maybe. I think going forward they're going to go in a different direction. I mean, again, I'd like to see them touch on the Kree Skrull War, but who knows? I did like the Skrulls very much, especially the twist in the end. Jarrett Shirley Garcia says, do you think Doctor Strange saw Captain Marvel and the one solution out of the 14 million to beat Thanos? Probably, but he couldn't say anything, and I don't think Doctor Strange knew who she was. He might have seen her, but didn't necessarily know exactly who she was or where she came from, and so he couldn't say anything to Tony, because if he did, he could ruin the one chance they had. Sam Fisher says, love that Marvel was a woman. I did too. I mean, look, the death of Captain Marvel was a poignant, very significant storyline in the Marvel universe when I was growing up. But again, I think what Marvel does, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is an adaptation of their comic universe. And I like the changes they've made to make it more set and grounded in reality. I mean, it's silly to say that when you end up with movies like Infinity War and Endgame, but they are trying to make it more relatable, or dare I say it, give it more verisimilitude, my favorite word. Maya Demi says, over or under 40% that Natasha talks to Carol in the Endgame trailer about Thanos wiping 50% of all living creatures. You know, I don't know. I think we know that already. I don't know if it's going to be in the Bang trailer. It might be. I am sure they'll talk about it in the movie, because Carol Danvers was obviously affected wherever she came from. She knows the snap happened. So she's going to be reeling from the effects of losing half the people she knew too. And that's going to be interesting to see her attitude about the whole thing. Eric Flynn said, liked Coulson's spot, thought it was perfect for him. However, now I wonder about why Maria Hill is closer to Fury and how that worked out. Well, remember, I mean, if this movie was set in 95, that's 20 years prior to really what we started seeing with Fury, or maybe 15 years. A lot changes in that time. Coulson moved up the ranks. He's got his own fish to fry. Maria Hill's probably maybe Fury's, I don't know, Padawan. Maybe. Alex Hayna says, I very rarely cry during a movie, but let me tell you, that scene of Carol standing up throughout her life really made me well up. One of the most powerful moments in any superhero film to date. Alex, I couldn't agree with you more. I loved seeing her fall down and get up. And it was a way we saw her entire life. We really saw an encapsulation of her life. And I thought that was a really interesting way to handle that. I thought it was really, really good. And I, too, was choked up seeing that. And the way that they wove that throughout the film, I thought it was great. And a great message. And it really got me. I thought it worked really, really well. Ganesh Prabhu says, was it just me or did they have an immigrant allegory? Oh, Ganesh, total immigrant allegory. I mean, they were displaced Jews in my mind, and they were facing a Holocaust. I mean, the Kree were bombing the Skrulls out of existence. They might as well have been shoveling the Skrulls into ovens. I don't think it was allegory. I mean, it was there. It wasn't just you. It was absolutely there. I felt it, and it's one of the reasons I like the movie a lot. Jacob Hirsch says, I liked how her suit switched through the color schemes of all her comic suits. That was really cool, wasn't it? A subtle nod to the history of the character, but very cool. I wish it was in daylight so we could have enjoyed it more, but it was still cool. The Elusive says, I'm glad Skrulls were used and done with. Now, as we all of the Fox content coming, Secret Invasion, in my humble opinion, would just cause confusion with the general audience. I agree. You know, I am recording this on in mere hours. Actually, if you go by East Coast time, as I record this, 20th Century Fox is no longer. It has been absorbed officially by Disney. Isn't it amazing? I mean, Alien is a Disney movie now. But yeah, I think, look, Kevin Feige now controls the X-Men and controls the Fantastic Four. Very, very exciting. But I think this Secret Invasion, yeah, unless you know it, it gets a little crazy. But you never know. Jermaine Walker says, do you feel Captain Marvel will hear Tony's message and bring him and Nebula to Earth? I don't know. There's something, I mean, Captain Marvel and Thor could do it. I really have no idea. I really can't wait to find out. We're less than, 38 days away. Woohoo! Giovanni CICC says, Rhodey and Peggy Carter should have cameoed. Rhodey was in the Air Force, right age. Peggy was head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, but you know what? I mean, the Triskelions on the East Coast. The movie was firmly set in the West Coast, and I think what's wrong? They're out. Fury's in California, and I you don't need to show everybody. It could have been cool, but I kind of like that we didn't see them. Just kind of like how I loved seeing the Triskelion at the beginning of Ant-Man, which was unexpected. Zen Benali says Taylor's talking to his fallen comrade is really sad in the second viewing, knowing that he's talking to his friend who's a refugee just defending himself. I felt the same way, dude. The second time I saw it, I was like, oh man, that dude was probably looking for his wife or his family. And I felt really bad when you know what the twist is and when it happens. What a bummer, right? Tough. Maya Demi says, didn't like the mid credits, wanted to see that in Endgame. Yes, 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 Maya. I'm with you. I would rather have seen it in Endgame, but it was still pretty cool. And it did get me pumped for Endgame. Ryan Lohner says, it's a cat, not Hannibal Lecter. Just ask Odin and Caecilius. Yes, that's funny. That's very, very funny. you know, it's really interesting that well, actually, all you have to get is Brian Cox somewhere in the MCU, and you got the trifecta of Hannibal Lecters. It's very funny. Javier Reyes 405 says, I wonder how Captain Marvel will interact with the other Avengers. I can't wait to see. She's a badass, and they might suspect her at first. And at least they'll learn from her. She has a lot more knowledge than they do about the galaxy. I think it's pretty cool. Angry Irish Benjamin says, first rule, don't watch the mouth, watch the claws. Words to live by. Trust me. Mike Noir says, lots of potential for sequels. I noticed Monica mentioned Carol had a bad relationship with her parents, but the film's vague about her mother. We see she has a loving brother and a dad who doubts her like others in the past. Yeah, I really like that. And I felt, it could really open up the plot. Who knows where it's going to go when they do the next Captain Marvel movie. There's a lot of potential places, and I look forward to seeing where it goes. But yeah, a lot of dangling story threads there. Jared Murray says, have never laughed so hard from an MCU performance like I did with Mendelssohn's Talos. Love how he interacted with the other characters. I agree. I thought he was terrific. And, he seemed like a scenery chewing villain. And then when the twist comes and you find out what's really going on, you really feel for the guy. And man, got me right in the feels when he sees his wife and daughter. Really great. Hector Jeter says, please tell me you thought of an alien from Enemy Mine when you saw the Skrulls. I sure did, especially when you see this kid Skrull. What Hector is talking about is Wolfgang Petersen's science fiction film starring Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr., Enemy Mine. Louis Gossett Jr. plays an alien, full prosthetic makeup. He has a son named Zamis in the movie. It's a great movie. ILM did the effects. It's really a story about how this alien, this human, are crashed on this planet. And I don't want to tell you. You should watch it. It's a pretty interesting science fiction film. I actually own it on Blu-ray. I haven't watched it in a while. I should check it out. But I liked it. I remember thinking it wasn't great, but it was really good. And it did. You're absolutely right. When the kid shows up, I was like, that's Zamis. That's Zamis from Enemy Mine. It's good stuff. But you're right. Alex Haynes says, do you think Carol Danvers was a Captain America fangirl? Would make sense for her character. I'd love to see that play out in Endgame. Yeah, why not? I mean, as a military person, I think everybody in the military probably admires Captain Marvel or Captain America, because remember, in the time that she would have only known Captain America as a World War II hero. He hadn't come back yet. They hadn't found him frozen yet. So she doesn't know he's alive. And I bet there has to be a moment in Endgame where she's like, oh my God, you're Captain America. And I think it plays out. It's gonna play out. I think it's gonna be great. I totally agree. I think it will play out. Oh, Mike Noir, he's going on. He says, actually, let me read that again, because I realize Mike Noir it's a two-part question. Mike Noir says, lots of potential for sequels. I noticed Monica mentioned Carol had a bad relationship with her parents, but the film's vague about her mother. We see she has a loving brother and a dad who doubts her like others in her past, but nothing of Carol's mother. And also, they could deviate from the comics and make Monica's dad an alien to explain the MCU version of Photon. Monica Rambeau is of course is Captain Marvel in the comics, in the Marvel comics, before Carol Danvers is. I hope they delve into that. I think it'd be really cool. I'd love to see the classic Captain Marvel black and white outfit. I mean, I think give her a fro too, because I used to love that character, and she's a great character. Angry Irish Benjamin said, Stan Lee tribute was funny and touching. R.I.P. I'll tell you, that tribute at the beginning of the movie with the Marvel Studios logo, man, that killed me. And then seeing him on the bus seeing him on the train with the Mallrats script, amazing. And I really hope they use that opening. I hope they use it in both Endgame and Spider-Man Homecoming. Force Userish says, Thanos eye scratch Flurkin, important to Endgame. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. If they have the Flurkin in Endgame, I think that would be great. Again, I'd love to see the relationship between Goose and Rocket explored, just like in the comics. Giovanni CICC says, too bad Hemsworth doesn't wear a wig anymore. It'd be hysterical when Thor meets Captain Marvel and they'd argue who has the better hair. Hey, I don't disagree with you. I'd love to see that. I really do dig Thor's new haircut. And, after we saw him at the end of Infinity War, I mean, one of the great Thor moments ever. So great. But it'd be funny. I mean, a hair off. We could have a hair off. Dakota Barber says, where's Fury? Mid-scene upped Endgame excitement. Dakota, I agree with you 100%. Absolutely, it upped the Endgame excitement. Shattergate Studios said, first film to make me cry in the first 15 seconds. Shattergate, come on, me too. That Marvel Studios logo. And what's interesting is, at first, you're waiting for it to come. You're anticipating it to come because you know what it looks like. And then when it's all Stan, right in the feels, man. Got me. Charles A says, what was worse, how Solo got his name or the Avengers? Listen, I got to go with Solo because, again, I think that as a comrade at arms, I think Nick Fury was honoring by creating this initiative that, by the way, he had just come up with. The idea was really probably instilled in him by Captain Marvel. So I thought it was a great, showed a lot of respect by using her call sign as the name of his initiative. Why not? That's the thing people do. That's what soldiers do. They honor one another through their deeds and words and actions. So I liked it, actually. The Solo thing smacked a little bit of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where Indiana Jones everything about him was handled in one afternoon. Mike Noir says, I also wonder if Captain Marvel ending the Kree-Skrull War will have ramifications going forward in the MCU, and maybe there are evil Skrulls out there. I guarantee you there are evil Skrulls out there. There's also the Super Skrull. I want to see the Super Skrull. But, we'll see. I can't wait. I think with the addition now of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four to the MCU, we're going to see cosmic stories like we've never seen before. And I really hope, that as far as the X-Men go, let's see the Shi'ar Empire. It's another, we've got the Nova Corps, we've got the Shi'ar Empire now, we've got the Krees, we've got the Skrulls, we've got all kinds of, we got the Eternals, the Celestials. There's all kinds of people we can go visit now. It's great. Jeffrey Solomon says, S.H.I.E.L.D. gave Mar-Vell the Tesseract because no one knew she was an alien, known as a great scientist who could help S.H.I.E.L.D. and Earth with advancing tech. I agree. They didn't know she was an alien. She kept it hidden. They didn't know she had a laboratory in orbit. I think it was great. To get Annette Bening to do that, I thought it was awesome. I really liked her performance. I thought she was great. I thought she was having a great time. Really great stuff. Dakota Barber says, probably tied with First Avenger as my favorite MCU origin. Yeah, again, I really liked it. I thought it was the indie version of a superhero origin, and I quite enjoyed it. And it got better for me the second, third time I saw it. So, Dakota, I agree with you on that one. See that Asnan guy over there, AZN, Anzac, is that Australian? I'm not sure, but that's a good name. Fury said the Asgardians were the first sign of other beings outside the Earth in Avengers. Is that a retcon now? I don't know. I mean, maybe he was just saying that to keep Captain Marvel on the DL. He was playing it close to the vest and just wanted to say that to make sure. Like, look, he's got to keep all this stuff a secret. Captain Marvel was probably the first alien he'd seen. Then it wasn't 20 years later, Thor shows up and he's just keeping it close to the vest. He's not going to let that information out until he needs to. Angry Irish Benjamin says, Ben Mendelsohn and Jude Law were excellent, but it really annoys me that almost everything we've seen of the Kree in the MCU has been evil, evil, evil. Hope this movie would be different. I understand. But again, I think the Kree are space Nazis. They're just not good people. And I like the fact that they're antagonists. See, the thing about the Kree is they think they're right. They've got this advanced civilization. We saw them riding on a train, just like as it wasn't. They live in a regular. The Kree is like America. They think they're Americans. They think they're great. They have this great civilization. Everything's awesome, and they see the Skrulls, these shape shifting green creatures as a threat. I mean, really interesting there. But I think the Kree are misguided. I don't know if they're evil. They come off as being evil, but from their perspective, like all villains, they're just trying to do what they think is right, which I think is interesting. Stretch Kid 79 says, were they taking a bit of a shot at Arnold, blowing him away off the True Lies display, or was it just in good fun? I think it was just in good fun. I mean, in 95, True Lies was big on home video, and I think it was fun that, Captain Marvel she doesn't know, who Arnold Schwarzenegger was. Actually, she probably would know Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I don't think she meant it as a slight. It was an accident. She thought that there was real people standing there, and it just happened to be Arnold. I think it was a wink and a nod to Schwarzenegger's great action career. I don't think it was a slight at all. I think it was actually kind of fun, and I bet Arnold would have loved it. He probably would have given one of those Arnold Schwarzenegger belly laughs if he saw the movie. Alex Von Gollum says, Stan's opening was just perfect. I got very emotional with it and couldn't concentrate for the first 1 minute of the flick. Stan is our superhero. Alex, I couldn't agree more. I felt the same way. What a tremendous way to honor him. Just another way that the MCU keeps it classy. Kevin Feige and everybody over at Marvel Studios, Louis Esposito, and I mean, all those people, they just really know what they're doing, and they're providing incredible entertainment. Mike Noir says, I'm honestly shocked about the huge opening because of the fake outrage. I do still think had an effect, though, maybe $30 million worth at least. Mike, you know what? I don't think so, because remember, we who are poring over movies and movie news on the internet, we are not the main bulk of the population of the movie-going public. We're a small minority. I know it doesn't seem like that at times, but most moviegoers, I mean, mothers and daughters who are going to see this movie, they knew nothing of any controversy. They just got to go to a film that had a female superhero front and center, and they had a great time. More women went to this movie the second week than did the first week, and that was great. And these online, it's all our online echo chamber. So I don't think it had an effect. Clearly, it didn't have an effect because the drop off was not as great as other Marvel movies, and it's right up there in the top echelon of performers so far for an origin film. It's certainly kicking ass. Isaac Beebe says, I've seen some people who are annoyed with how Fury lost his eye, a scratch from a cat, but keep in mind, Goose is not a cat. He's an alien creature, so he probably has some sort of poison in his claws. Abso-frickin-lutely, Isaac. I agree with you 100%. He is a Flurkin after all, and as I said before, in the comics, Flurkins have entire universes inside their bellies. So God knows what kind of things he had in his claws. So I can understand that. I mean, if you're going to lose an eye, you might as well lose it to an alien feline, I guess. Of course, you'd have to explain to people, unless they saw Goose flirking out, then people are just going to be like, what, that cat scratched your eye out? That's probably why Fury said, yeah, Kree took it. Victor Watson said, the theater I was in yesterday, I seen a lot of guys and fathers with their kids. It just put a smile on my face. Teenage girls and moms. Yeah, because this is a movie that everybody enjoys. I mean, the modern, the film going audiences, remember, they don't pore over this stuff the way we OG geeks do, the way we, die-hard MCU fans. The regular audiences just want to see a great movie. And I think they got that in Captain Marvel, and they got what they wanted. Captain Marvel post-credits prove Tony returns to Earth himself. Do they? I don't know. I don't think Tony can, after what we've seen in the trailers, I think he needs some help, man. He's going to die. I can't wait to see what happens. But 121 Sam Rose, I don't know if Captain Marvel post-credits prove that Tony returns to Earth himself. We'll have to wait and see. Mike Holtackers says, I just came home from seeing the film. Holy shit balls, Batman. That was fun, right? I thought it was fun too. I thought it was even more fun the second and third time I saw it. Phil Lee says, so what about the theory that Skrulls will be the next MCU big bads? Nope. They're not going to be the next big bads. They're just not. I mean, after you've fought the extraterrestrial threat of Thanos, I don't think the Skrulls, after we've seen them as refugees, could ever be that, I don't know, that formidable, maybe? Zaza Yu says $455 million. Poor Trolls. Poor Trolls is right, man. Poor Trolls is right. Alex Haynes says, won a $50 bet on the cat scratching out of Fury's eye. Good on you. Can I borrow some money? I need more Hot Toys figures. Rachel Duncan says, I really enjoyed the relationship between Maria and Carol, and I hope we get to see a grown-up Monica. I do too. I mean, obviously, for the MCU going forward, Monica Rambeau becomes Captain Marvel. I'd love to see that happen. Maybe they can fight together. Maybe Captain Marvel is a permanent fixture on Earth, whereas Carol Danvers stays in the cosmic realm. So there's two Captain Marvels. I think that could be cool. None your business says, by the way, it's none your business. I love that. None your business. Love the show. It's 20 plus years to Endgame. Monica is now an adult. Think we get to see Pulsar in Phase 4? I don't know. That's a good question. I really like the relationship between Tony Stark and Rhodey. I'd love to see Monica and Carol Danvers have a relationship. And, whether it's Pulsar or another Captain Marvel, I'd like to see it. But, man, I just love that white and black suit, the Monica Rambeau version of Captain Marvel. I'd love to see that realized. Orang Polk says, with Captain Marvel released, will Endgame trailer come soon? Well, as we've seen, it was dropped. So I'm sorry, this is a couple weeks after you asked this question, but yes, we did. It wasn't the bang trailer. We might get that in early April, but who knows? Javier Reyes 405 says, do you think we'll see Talos and Maria Rambeau and Jude Law's character return or come back in a future movie? I would like to see them make a return. You know what? They were all great. I really liked all three of the actors. I think for sure they'll come back because I think they're a vital part of the franchise. I think I think Jude Law in his twisted way cared about Carol Danvers Veers. He did. And I think that he had a stake in her well-being. And I think we're going to see him again. Plus, I love the way he played the character. Andrew Naranjo says, Thanos instead of Ronan would have had more impact. Yeah, I mean, but you know what? Thanos was introduced later, and I liked Ronan. I liked the tie-in to Guardians, and I like the fact that Ronan's a Kree, and Ronan has a big part to play, and he was a big character in the comics, and I liked it. I think Thanos would have been too much, especially now, because we're waiting to see what happens because of Endgame, because Thanos won, and if they brought him back into Captain Marvel, it might have seemed a little, I don't know, anticlimactic. Benny95 says, so I guess Captain Marvel flies off and leaves the Avengers on Earth with PTSD classes, since in all the trailers it takes place after the mid-credit scene. I don't know. We'll see. Could be, maybe. I don't know. It looks like Cap is suffering from PTSD, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. I don't know what the timeline is. Koba, love you, Koba. Does Fury still own Goose? Who knows? Once a Flurkin pukes up the Infinity Stone on your desk, I don't think you're ever going to let that cat go. But we don't know. I'm curious to find out. Isaac Beebe says, what did you think of how the Avengers got their name? Also be nice to your neighbor. You never know when you're going to need some sugar. That was funny. Yes, you should always be nice to your neighbor because you do never know when you're going to need sugar. But I think, and I talked about it earlier, I think it was great how the Avengers got their name. I thought seeing one soldier, of which Fury was, when he finds out where Carol Danvers came from, it was one soldier honoring another. I loved it. I thought it was great. Victor Watson says the loss of Nick Fury's eye was pretty cool. Didn't bother me at all. Didn't bother me either. I mean, I liked, maybe he should have shrieked in terror, but yeah. Haskell 420 says, confused. Marvel's Kree and saves the Skrulls. Of course. Marvel's like Oscar Schindler. He's like Oscar Schindler saved a lot of Jews. Marvel doesn't believe what the Kree are doing to the Skrulls is right. I mean, she's a scientist. She believes in the sanctity of life. That's why she's come to Earth, so she won't be interfered with while she's building this light speed engine to help save the Skrulls. John Pugu, Rudrapugu. John, I can't pronounce that right. I'm sorry, I'm just massacring your name. But I watched Captain Marvel because I wanted to know its relation to Avengers 4 based on Captain Marvel's earnings. Can we expect Avengers 4 to have a bigger opening than Infinity War? Look, I think like Infinity War benefited from Black Panther, I think the success of Captain Marvel only bodes well for Endgame. I think Endgame is going to open huge, if not the biggest opening of all time, then it's going to be pretty damn close. And I think the success of Captain Marvel just feeds into it. Captain Marvel is still going to be in theaters, just like Black Panther was, playing second run, and people are stoked. I know that I am stoked. Haskell 420 says, did Marvel know the Kree were murderers? Absolutely. That's why she's trying to save the Skrulls. That's why she's harboring refugees and families. Marvel, like in the comics, is a good woman, just like Marvel in the comics was a good man. I mean, in the movies, Marvel is a good woman. Katsik284 says, loved Captain Marvel, second favorite origin movie behind Iron Man. 4 Skrulls came to Earth. Talos, fake Carol, dead. Fake baby Coulson, dead. What happened to the 4th? What did happen to the 4th? We don't know. I'm sure that will be resolved in some future date, if not in Endgame. Paul Andrews says, human characters are way too accepting of aliens. Maybe. I don't know, but you're talking about, you had the Red Skull and humans were accepting of him back in World War II. But maybe you might be right. But I think that these are also jaded military people. I don't think maybe there was alien technology before Area 51 or something like that. I don't know. Gabriel Reed says, I really liked how lighthearted and bright Captain Marvel was, and then it cuts to a dark, grim, and somber post-credit scene. Can't wait for Endgame. Gabriel, you said it, son. Me neither. I can't wait to see Endgame. Fantastic. Alex Von Gollum says, I love the movie, not in the level of Civil War. Carol's character development was great. Narrative made me see why women would feel very identified with her growth. Having seen Room helped me to see her range. Look, I agree. Not every movie, not every comic book origin story has to have some Dormammu apocalyptic ending. I've come to bargain. You don't need all that. And I think this movie, again, was really interesting. It was all about interpersonal relationships, and it was all about the relationship Carol Danvers had with herself, the part of herself that she didn't know and didn't understand, and how she came to grips with it in the film. I mean, it was character development. It was a character learning and growing and becoming something, and I think the best kind of character, which is awesome. Victor Watson says, the cast was top-notch. Movie was a solid for me. 7.5 ranks along with Captain America, First Avenger, Thor, Ant-Man, and Doctor Strange. Victor, I agree too. I really liked it. And it was a different kind of movie. I think it was, like I said, it's like the indie version of one of those movies. And it was more about relationships, and it was more heartfelt. And I really responded to that. Kylo Ren said, favorite CGI scene was her staring down Ronan. That was badass. At the end of the movie, I love how Ronan's like, yeah, I think we're just gonna go. I thought that was badass. I love that. That was terrific. I agree with you. That was a great scene. Zhang Di says, Carol doesn't get along with her family is enough of a reason not to even go visit them for the last time before she returns to space for 3 decades. Well, to be fair, I mean, she's got a lot on her mind. But yeah, I mean, I think we saw her real family. I mean, we don't know. She's estranged from her real family, but now it's Maria, it's Monica, and I think she saw them and it was good. But that's a good point. Good point. Carlos Herrera says Captain Marvel looked 40 when she came back. Future movies too? No, I mean, I think that Brie Larson's she's 30, 29, 30. I think that they've got time. They can make 2 movies. We'll see her age normally, and then she'll catch up to where Endgame is, which I think is pretty cool. Haskell 420 says, I know DC's coming out with a Super Pets movie, but I so want a Groot, Rocket, Goose, Cosmo team-up flick. Laugh out loud. Haskell 420, that's a really good idea. I mean, if Super Pets, who knows if this Super Pets movie is a success, maybe we'll see a live-action Marvel animal movie. Groot leads the team. Groot and Rocket lead the team. I would like to see that. Joe Byram says, the biggest laugh, Goose pinned against the crate. That was pretty damn funny. Pretty damn funny. I laughed. I laughed at most of the Goose stuff. It was pretty great. Rory Fansler says, Cat was telegraphed by watching them in archives. I thought the twist, it might be a Skrull, but we knew something was up. Absolutely. I mean, they did telegraph Goose as being more than meets the eye. I mean, why would the Skrulls be so scared of a cat? I really like that, though. I really like the way they set it up. Roy Fansler goes on to say, binary connected to a white hole. Space Stone could have created the link to power the engine. Theater clapped during opening and mid-credit. Absolutely. So you're in a good theater. Isn't it great when you're in a theater where people are really into it? I love that. It's great. Glenn Enriquez says, I really appreciate Wonder Woman now. It's night and day. Well, I guess you're comparing Wonder Woman. You're saying you like Wonder Woman better. I just think they're different kinds of movies. They're trying to do different things. I think they're very different movies just because, to me, I think about cop movies. You got cop movies from the 70s, like Serpico and Prince of the City, and maybe that was the 80s, but that's okay. Serpico and French Connection. And then you've got like an 80s cop movie like To Live and Die in LA. They're cop movies, but they're very different movies. I like them both for different reasons. I kind of felt that way about Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman. Uh, Robert Carrasco says, do you think the Kree was getting the Tesseract for Thanos even new? They said they wanted it for something else. Maybe. I mean, that makes sense that the Kree were looking for the Tesseract for Thanos. That very well could be. Maybe they knew that. I mean, it'll be interesting to explore how that relationship, especially between Ronan and Thanos, developed. I wonder if we're going to see more of that in the future. I'd like to see that. Jace Little says, does this mean Kevin Smith's movies are canon? Well, yes, I think Kevin Smith and Kevin Smith's movies are now officially MCU canon. Chasing Amy did happen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which means Ben Affleck is alive somewhere in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Which is kind of cool. I wonder if that means that Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice is then canon in the MCU. Gets crazy, people. Jace Little says, does this mean... Oh, I already just said that. Brent Strange says, my entire theater erupted with applause at the Stan Lee introduction. It was very well done and is my fondest audience moment I've had at the movies. It was amazing, right? Terrific stuff. It really got you. Rocky Severino says, why did the Kree care about a light speed drive when they had to have a faster than light drive to get to Earth anyway? Well, they were using jump points. As we saw, there were jump points, I guess, at all the planets. Maybe a faster than light engine just does that. Maybe it gets into hyperspace. Maybe it's a technology that doesn't exist. Maybe in the MCU they need jump points. They haven't really. That was a little ill-defined, and I did think it was a weaker point in the film. They needed to explain that more, but we were seeing jump points. It wasn't like they were coming out of hyperspace. They needed to go into these jump points. So, but a little nebulous, Rocky. I'm with you there. Ryan Lohner says, Feige is now saying, how do we know Fury never used the pager before and she was just too busy? That could be. I also think that, if you think about it, up until the Battle of New York, what could have possibly happened that they would call Carol Danvers back from space? And even the Battle of New York, when Loki shows up with the Chitauri, it only happened in an afternoon. The Avengers were there. They were taking care of things. And that's probably why Fury didn't call Carol Danvers. But it didn't bother me that much. PGML says, I think the Skrulls could still be villains in a future film due to events in Infinity War. Yeah, they could. I mean, I don't rule them out. Jose Munoz says, hi, John. You probably won't agree, but for me, Doctor Strange at his peak is the strongest Avenger. Then comes Thor, Captain Marvel, and Scarlet Witch. Jose, that is an interesting, you could make a case there just because his powers are different. He goes onto the astral plane. I mean, this is something, that Thor, Captain Marvel, and Scarlet Witch don't do. I would say Scarlet Witch maybe can come close. They haven't really defined these powers yet, but you might be right about that. Wesley Cunningham says, anyone notice her suit is slightly different in the mid-credit scene? I noticed that, actually. Doesn't matter at all, but I found it interesting. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's been almost 25 years or 20 years or something. Why wouldn't she change her costume around? I mean, girls, they like to change it up. They're not going to wear the same outfit for 20 years. I don't know any woman worth her salt who would. Tim Horton's better than Starbucks. Enjoy Aquaman or Captain Marvel more? I'm not comparing, just curious. Again, I think they're apples and oranges. I loved Aquaman because it brought me back to my childhood watching the Ray Harryhausen Sinbad movies and Jason and the Argonauts, those fantasy epics of yore. Like, one of my favorite things when I was a kid was the end of Jason and the Argonauts when they battle with the stop motion skeletons. Man, I love that. And Aquaman had a lot of Ray Harryhausen in it. Whereas Captain Marvel was more of a relationship story, cosmic story. I thought they were very different. So I liked them both for different reasons. If that makes sense. I'm not trying to cop out, but that's kind of what I think. Andreas Perilla Glenn, going back to Ronan, maybe they're setting up a Captain Marvel trilogy that happens in the past. Ronan going to play a part. It could include Nova Corps and Captain Marvel ending the war, and they defeat Jan Rog. I agree. I mean, I'd love to see Jan Rog come back. As I said, I love Jude Law. You never know. I mean, I think a trilogy would be really cool. And you keep the Skrulls going. You bring Mendelsohn back. You bring Jude Law back. You bring Annette Bening back. Loved all those guys and girls. Wesley Cunningham says, like the movie all right, but that song playing during her fight with Star Force at the end was an odd music choice. Wasn't it garbage? Was it Shirley Manson? Was garbage? Yeah, it was period specific. It might have been an odd music choice, but if you grew up with that song, it's a cool tune. Um, I liked it. I mean, it touched my nostalgia bone. Jock Cop says, "You excited for what the Russos do with her?" Heck yeah! I love what the Russos did with the Guardians, so I can't wait to see what they're going to do with Carol Danvers. Very excited, and we only have to wait a little more than a month. Nirmana Gunaskara, pardon me if I mispronounce your name. Do you believe the issues of the inconsistent CGI was mostly due to bad direction? Both of the directors have never handled a big budget before. Well, they do have to keep costs down. They don't have an unlimited bunch of funds. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination. I don't think it was bad direction, but you really have to understand how to employ visual effects. So, I thought all the CGI was passable. I enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it fit the film. Um, but it could have something to do with inexperienced directors when it comes to VFX. B. Brad says, "Hi, John. Love your show. You're objective and unbiased. Damn, 500,000,000. Will it have legs to reach 1 billion? It's breaking box office here. What you feel love from India." I'm glad to hear that, B. Brad. Thanks for writing in from India. It's great to know. Our podcast, Best Worst Movie, is at the top of the charts in India. It's amazing. India is a place I've never been. I've wanted to go since I saw the James Bond movie Octopussy. The villain in that movie was Louis Jordan playing Kamal Khan. People got to ride elephants in that. I know it's probably cliche, and in my mind, everywhere you go in India, people just break into song everywhere because I've seen some Bollywood movies, and I just think that everyone just sings Jai Ho at the drop of a hat. But I really want to come to India, and I know India has the largest film industry in the world, so I'd love to come and tour the studios and maybe see an Indian film getting made. It's great to know we've got fans in India. Great to hear from you. Thanks for writing in. Kamashun says, "Pretty sure Captain Marvel did so well because we wanted to know how it connected to Endgame. I didn't care much about Captain Marvel, but I care about Endgame, so I bought in." Well, I cared about Captain Marvel. I bought in because I really like the entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think it's great. It's an unprecedented, unparalleled feat in Hollywood history. Well, everyone, that brings me to the end of these questions. I'm sorry it took me so long to finish them. Listen, I want to thank you all for making me feel loved on the John Campea Show. I really like doing the show with John. I really like doing our Best Movie, Worst Movie podcast with Cody Miller and John. Check that out wherever podcasts are available. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me answer your questions. I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm sorry I wasn't able to do it live, but I hope you enjoy this. And you can always find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at RMBurnett. Or please find my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and go to my website, theburnettwork.net, to see all of my comings and goings. And that will bring an end to this adjunct to John's channel. I've never done this before, but I'm happy to have done it, and I'm happy you guys listen. So thank you very much, and hope to see you again. I hope to do this again. This was a lot of fun. So I'll talk to you soon.